Hey, Sean, good morning. Just wondered if you could begin by updating the injury situation. Obviously, some of the primary guys with John Brown, Milano, and Trey at the top of that
Yeah.
list.
Yeah. Those guys, I'll know a little bit more. They're going to practice today. We're going to jog through Adam. So Dawson will not practice. I think we'll know a little bit more on the group as a whole, just to kind of summarize it in short tomorrow, a little bit more tomorrow after we practice in a normal speed practice.
And just a quick follow-up, how would you describe, your team kind of in a mixed kind of a week in terms of the schedule and having to change things up? Tough loss the other night. Mindset, however you would describe it as they prepare for this opponent.
Yeah, mindset is focused on the task at hand. We're putting in the work, trying to block out any and all the typical noise that surrounds week to week in the NFL, and focus on a good Chiefs challenge that we have coming in here.
Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, John Scott. There are reports that there is interest with Le'Veon Bell. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, Brandon and I always, how we do it. We always look into every situation, this being one of them. So trying to improve our football team. So that's as much as I can tell you right now.
Just overall, taking him out of it, what have been your thoughts on how the running game has performed through 5 games?
Well, I think we can be better in a lot of areas. That being one of them, John, with our ability to run the football. So we've got to be able to get a hat for a hat, move people in the run game, and it can't always be, whether it's pass game or different thing. We got to be able to be balanced as much as we can to win games.
Thanks, Sean.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, Thad Brown. Josh talked about being a little bit greedy with the second interception Tuesday night, and last week he talked about the hero ball stuff. But I know you don't want to make mistakes, but if you coach that stuff out of him, do you worry about losing some of the fearlessness and aggressiveness that makes him who he is, to the point where, yeah, you know what, there might be some mistakes, but we're good with this quarterback because there's so much more good than bad that comes with him?
Yeah, and I believe that as I continue to get to know Josh in this year, and it sounds weird to say that, like get to know Josh, I know him now, but where is he in his career and his journey and his ascent and his evolution is, I'm now, hey, we're good, okay, right? He understands the importance of protecting the ball, and he's done a phenomenal job up to this past week, and he understands the importance of and how that the ball relates to winning and sometimes losing games too. So in terms of the outcome of games, so I don't want to take that away from him in terms of his play, and so he's, again, I think we've seen in year 3 how he's learning what he can and can't do at times, and even with that, it's making sure those moments that did show up, the one in particular the other night where he forced it, as he said, become fewer and fewer as we move forward here.
Is part of that too kind of you, and maybe not particularly with Josh, but you with any player, learning how to properly guide a player in terms of, yeah, you want to take out mistakes, but you don't want to get to the point where you're so nitpicking each mistake that the player loses who they are and what they do well.
Yeah, that's why we drafted these players or acquired these players in other ways. So you got to, each player has his own case file, and we want to be as intentional as we can in getting to know these players and seeing what they're best at and how we can help them improve their weaknesses and manage those areas. So in this case with Josh, I would say 100%. Yeah, it's how can we let him be who he is, because that's a big reason why we drafted him, yet at the same time adapt his game to the NFL.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, John Warrow, AP. Hope all is well.
Thanks, John.
Looking back, good seeing you. Looking back to 2010, and you said that when you previously said that you were crushed by getting fired by Andy, but in the end, it eventually brought you two closer, and you've learned a lot from that. What perspective, and I mean, what perspective have you gained from over the 10 years now that it's been, and how much of a learning experience? You always talk about growth process and things like that. How much was that a growing experience for you in the 10 years that have followed?
Oh, absolutely. And now, because it was so long ago, John, I honestly use that to help develop some of my coaches and share, these experiences, common experiences that I've been through with them, and shaping their career, because that's in the role I'm in now. It's about developing people, whether it's players, staff, coaching staff in this case, and yeah, I mean, it was those are moments that you go through in life that you say, hey, you know what, I came out better because of it, and Andy knew that. He did that because he knew it was the best thing for me. He knew the situation in Philadelphia, and I respect him for it.
And do you joke around about it when you talk to Andy about it now? I mean, do you joke about it now? You're the guy who fired me.
Yeah, we kind of jab about it here and there. It's we can do that because I think we're all, like I said, he told me then, he said this will be the best thing for you, and and he was right, and so, like I said, I use it now to help mentor and disciple some of the staff that I'm around and coaches around the league that want to continue to grow.
Last thing quickly, I guess all you're missing is his Hawaiian shirts, right?
Yeah, that's not necessarily my style, but yeah, he's big into the Hawaiian shirts and the cheeseburgers before the game, the night before the game, and everything. And yeah, I learned so much from him. And even to this day, to say that a guy is my mentor, professional mentor, I think is just incredible. And I think I would hope that I would have that same effect on coaches that are around me, later on in their career, that maybe when I'm done and they can turn around and say, hey, you know what, I learned something, a thing or two from Sean.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Hey, Sean. Now that you've had about five games here, sample size to really sink your teeth into the film, and this year's iteration of your defense, Star Tulele is somebody that you've spoken so highly of over the years. Now that you've had these 5 games to look at, is there anything missing with him not there? And I'm also curious, has there been any impact on Tremaine Edmonds without that kind of space-eating force that he always was for us?
Well, that size is and the type of player Star is and person he is was big for us. We understand and respect his decision, and we move honestly on from there. And so we have confidence in the guys that are here, and that's where our focus is, and improving our defense. I think we're still getting to know. Kind of weird to say that, especially with some of the continuity we've had on defense, but with some of the injuries, with adding some new pieces and the lack of preseason, now I think we're still figuring out who we are and some of the things we do well, and a number of things we have to improve on, and how we need to improve on those. And so that's where the communication comes in, just making sure we're aligned on, hey, where we are and what's the next best thing to do for our football team, our defense in this case.
And how much do some of these trials and tribulations, I mean, you guys have been so consistently good, but having these kind of short periods where there might be struggles, how many lessons could these help with later on in the season when the games matter more, especially not only in December, but January games as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's, we have to improve in some of those areas so we can make it to January. That's a necessary part of it. And then these come up every year, whether it's on the defensive side, offensive side, special teams, or as a whole. There's going to be moments we can learn from, and kind of those crucible moments where we can take out of the things we have to take out of it, and learn and use it to help our football team moving forward. And you get stronger because of it, because you kind of lift the hood and say, hey, let's take a deeper dive into who we are and what we need to do to improve.
Thanks, Sean.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, you made it a point during the offseason to say that continuity doesn't win games. But even with that, returning essentially the same pieces from last year's top 10 rushing offense, what has been, I guess, the struggle this season to get that run game going through 5 games?
Well, let's just, I think if you look at it, just number of opportunities, just, let's start there and say the number of opportunities, run versus pass, has been a little bit different, right? And so that would be one piece, and then the other piece is making sure that we're staying true to our philosophy in terms of what we're doing up front. And I know Bobby and the offensive line are hard at work at that this week, and we've got a lot of confidence in those guys. And then it's a mentality, right? Overall for our football team, overall for our offense, in this case, in our run offense. I lost you. You there?
Next question.
Sorry, Marcel, I can't hear you.
I'm asking him to mute himself.
There we go. It's like when you're trying to unlock the car and pull the handle at the same time. Going off of that, how much is this offensive line missing John Feliciano, and how close is he to returning after practicing last week?
Yeah, listen, I love John, right? John's a warrior. He's one of our leaders. That said, John's working through coming back from this injury, and we play who we can play, who's available, and we've got a lot of confidence in those guys, and they collectively, with Brian in there of late, are still getting on the same page, and again, it goes back to, I know that they have that mentality, and now we got to bring it out a little bit more each week here.
Thanks, Sean.
Sure.
Okay, now we're going to transition into Kansas City's media.
Okay.
Starting with Soren Petro.
Coach, the growth of Josh Allen, he's taken a big step forward. You guys also have been, building the weapons around him. How much of it is just the experience and getting the repetitions, and how much of it is the ability to grow because he's got some more places to go with the football?
I'd say it's all of that. With respect to your question, it's all of that. There's not just one factor, one variable in that equation. Especially when you're wired the right way, like Josh is. There's more than one thing at play, and it's experience, it's learning the game, it's additional weapons around him, and I think all that is baked into his development to this point this season.
And then just to follow up, you were talking about your relationship with Coach Reid. What is it? You guys, your group, your branches on his tree have been extraordinarily successful, right? More successful than other coaches that have had great success on their own. What is it? Is it his off-season calendar? Is it his in-season approach? Like, I know you're not going to, show your cards and say, hey, here's what we do. But why has his success been so translatable to the guys that have worked under him?
Yeah, I just think you interact with Andy almost daily, like our beat guys do here with me, and you know how consistent he is. And sometimes I'm sure you guys get frustrated with that, but that consistency bodes well for a football team and keeping a football team focused on the task at hand. And he's always going to do what's in the best interest of his team, even though it may be unpopular. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I've learned from him. I would say most people who have been around him and worked around him respect that and appreciate that about him.
Thank you, Coach.
Sure.
Hey, Coach, no one's really stopped the Chiefs, but they have slowed them down a lot. And certainly since the Super Bowl, we've seen teams using a lot of dropping 7-8 guys back. How do you balance, seeing a strategy that teams use to counterbalance a guy like Mahomes while still staying true to who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I think that's obviously Patrick is a great quarterback. And so I say that, well, I'm going to say that, you always have to blend what you do and what the opponent does best. So I think it's you try and find a healthy blend every week. They've got so much stuff that Andy creates. Especially because of the treatment. All the gadgets and all those, kind of creative things with guys behind the line. You can't stop it all. I can tell you we've worked on a lot of it to this point as of this morning. So, but they're an elite offense and they're going to make some plays and we have to be ready for that.
Women say is.
I'm also curious that, how much comparisons do you see between Josh and Patrick, and how much do you look at what Andy's doing in Kansas City with Patrick and see what you can kind of adapt for Josh?
And
Yeah, it's kind of hard to hear because someone has their talk button on. But I'll just say this: they're two different players, both blossoming young quarterbacks. Obviously, Patrick winning a Super Bowl already at this point. But exciting times for the league to be able to watch two young quarterbacks like this, come into their prime in the next several years here.
Hey, Sean, this is Adam Teicher from ESPN. Wanted to get your perspective since you coached with Andy for whatever it was, 8 or 10 years. Why do you feel like players enjoy playing so much for Andy? And do you have any stories that maybe can illustrate what you're talking about?
It's probably a better question for a player, but if I had to guess, I would say he's just fair. He's demanding and firm, but at least what's expected, and I think players appreciate that, although it may not be easy to hear on the front end of it, but in the long run, Andy's fair, and I think that whoever works for Andy, whether it's a player, coach, staff member, I think they can grow and learn to appreciate that over the course of time, and what he does works, right? And I remember times in Philadelphia where, I thought, hey, the media is talking about, well, okay, this is the season that Andy goes, and because we were 1-3 or whatever, and his consistency over the course of time helps the team. And looking at him now, I saw the stat the other day, he's top 5 in wins, and years ago, going through all those adverse times, adverse moments in this particular season, Andy just stayed the course, and it helped our football team and the organization that we were both with.
Hey, thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, Coach, good morning. Herbie Teope here with the Kansas City Star. You mentioned Andy Reid's consistency, and I want to tap into your background on his staff in Philadelphia. Last week with the Raiders, John Gruden, who spent time with him in Green Bay, had mentioned something you don't even recognize what the Chiefs are doing on offense anymore. When you pop on that tape, do you get that sense as well?
Yeah. I mean, there's some things I can still remember, but I mean, just start with the weapons. The weapons are different. Those weapons are elite. The speed is elite, and they've been together for some time now. So, the complexion has changed enough that I can still see, maybe 20% of that offense that I remember, but 80% of it honestly is new and dynamic.
As a follow-up to that, what does that say about Andy's ability to evolve over the years and the decades from not maintaining the status quo, but he is able to evolve?
Well, he's always possessed that growth mindset, and that's the thing I love about him is one of the things I learned from him was he was always trying to evolve and grow and find the next thing dynamically for our football team and for, in this case, his offense. He was always cutting edge, and if he wasn't, he was always looking into it to make sure that he was doing the best thing for his team. And I think over the course of time, that bodes well for your team.